Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Jordan Oberg Show. Really grateful to be here for you. In case you're wondering, obviously, this is a Sunday. We are now uploading on Sundays at 7 o'clock instead of Wednesdays. If you want the real answer to why, it's because I now take an art class on my Wednesdays from 5 to 7:40 at night. And it's not because I want to, but because it fills an art requirement for my university. So unfortunately, I'm stuck doing that on my Wednesdays now. So um, it it takes up a lot of my time when you're drawing for 2 hours and 40 minutes. I'm also a terrible artist. I actually hate art, so it's gonna be absolutely miserable. On the bright side, though, college baseball is officially starting back up, so I'm rocking my Tennessee hat. But yeah, big Tennessee baseball fan, big Ohio State football fan, but baseball is the best sport ever. So we're rocking Tennessee for the baseball season. With that being said, we are continuing our series on Job. 2 episodes ago, we started on Job, chapters 1 through 10. This one's a little bit shorter. We're covering it down to chapters 11 through 14. So it's a little bit smaller. And the reason why I'm shrinking it a little bit is because chapters 1 through 10, pretty straightforward, right? They're pretty straightforward. There's nothing wrong with doing 10 chapters there, I don't think. But as the story of Job kind of goes on, there's a lot of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I mean, honestly, you see back and forth in chapters 1 through 10. But I really just want to break it up and be able to go chapter by chapter and really just break it down. I don't want to give a ton of information on one video, one series for 10 chapters again. So, we have 4 chapters here, 11 through 14. I was going to do 5, but I just made it simple, 11 through 14. And yeah, I thought that was a good stopping point. So, before we jump into chapters 11 through 14, obviously I have my Bible here. We'll go ahead and start reading that very soon. I just want to give a quick recap because it's been 2 weeks. So obviously we started with chapter 1, worked all the way up through 10. Very beginning, Job starts out as this very wealthy man, very big with his family, has a ton of wealth, has a lot of animals. He actually ends up losing everything. He loses his family, he loses his children, he loses his farm, if you want to call it a farm, whatever you want to call it. He loses his wealth. Not because he sinned, but in a way that completely breaks the system that these people trusted in that time frame. And obedience doesn't protect him, and faith doesn't prevent loss. So at first, Job actually stays silent. For the first 7 days, he stays silent. His friends show up. They also don't say a word. All they do is watch Job in the beginning. He begins to lament. He doesn't curse God, but he does question existence. His friends respond, and they insist that suffering means guilt. Job keeps saying the same thing, though. Show me what I did wrong, and I will correct it. He's openly inviting for correction in his life if he's done something wrong, but his friends refuse to tell him because they don't know. Now, by chapters 9 and 10, Job stops arguing with people, and he starts speaking directly to God. He realizes something completely devastating, that whether he sins or lives righteously, he still suffers, right? And that's a very common question for people in today's world. And the system that they follow is no longer the reality, right? That is no longer a backing point for this system because they believe that if you did right, that you were blessed, and if you did wrong, you were punished. And that's how that worked back. That's how people believed. And this story completely contradicts that theory. But Job does not walk away. He keeps talking. He stays engaged. And this is where chapters 11 through 14 start to begin. And this section covers what happens after the system breaks. And the explanations really, they get harsher. They're more direct. The pressure increases. And, Job's faith, it does not get any quieter. So we're going to cover it today, chapters 11 through 14. Chapter 11 starts off with a character named Zophar. Zophar, he starts to speak. He is definitely the harshest friend out of the ones that have come to visit him. To Zophar, Job, his honesty it feels like arrogance for him. That seems to be the kind of, that's how I kind of take it from when I'm reading this. But Zophar does something crazy here. He actually puts words in Job's mouth here. And he accuses Job of claiming moral purity. And even though Job never actually says that, right? Job explains how he's confused, and he goes on and says that he's open for correction, that if he's done something wrong, tell me, show me the proof, and I will fix myself. He's not against being corrected, right? He's not claiming that he's perfect. He's just asking for a simple correction, which he can't get because his friends are not giving him that. His friends are saying, you are experiencing this kind of suffering, which means you must have done something wrong. And that is the broken system that these guys truly believe that exists at this point in time. So he basically tells Job, right? Zophar is talking to Job here. And he basically said that God is treating Job better than he deserves. And in other words, he's saying that you're guilty and this could be worse. So let's start off Job chapter 11. Last time I rewatched my video and you guys couldn't even see me and I was just looking straight down. So I'm going to try and look a little more like this. But Zophar speaks in the very beginning. Should this abundance of words go unanswered and such a talker be acquitted? Should your babbling put others to silence so that you could keep on ridiculing with no one to humiliate you? You have said, my teaching is sound and I am pure in your sight. Now that's a lie. Right? Because Zophar says, verse 4, you have said, my teaching is sound and I am pure in your sight. He's saying that Job has said that. Job has never said that. You can go back to the video where I covered chapters 1 through 10. Nowhere does Job ever say anything similar to that. Right? Now, if you go down to verse 7, he says, can you fathom the depths of God or discover the limits of the Almighty? He's basically saying at this point, God is so big, why are you questioning him? Right? And then he goes on again, verse 10, if he passes by and throws someone in prison or convenes a court, who can stop him? Surely he knows which people are worthless. If he sees iniquity, will he not take note of it? But a stupid person will gain understanding as soon as a wild donkey is born a human. And he's basically saying if God is doing this, that it must be right. End of discussion, right? So, and then again, covers on verse 20, but the sight of the wicked will fall, and their escape will be cut off, and their only hope is their last breath. He's basically saying if you don't accept this, you're screwed, right? So Zophar is backing the system that has been failed, or that is failing, right? The idea of you will be rewarded if you do something right, and you will also be punished if you do something wrong. That is what Zophar is saying here. That is what he's backing, and he's basically saying, Job, if you don't accept this, you're wrong. So, going on to chapter 12, Job actually, and like I said, this is usually common. When a friend speaks, you already know that Job's going to reply. So chapter 12 is Job's reply to Zophar. And he's actually really calm in this chapter. And like I said, we're already 11 chapters in of back and forth. Just think about having any sort of argument with a friend. It's hard to be calm. So props to Job. But he opens up with sarcasm, and he basically is like, I already know what you know, right? And he's not doing that to be petty, but he's doing it to kind of shut down the idea that his suffering is coming from ignorance, right? So Job names something that everyone sees, but no one that wants to admit, and that the righteous are often mocked, and the wicked are often fine, right? Reality does not line up with the formula, is basically what he's saying here. And he says, you don't even need theology to see this, right? And he says to look at nature. He says animals survive without moral explanations, and life doesn't pretend to be fair. And yet Job still affirms that God holds all of life. And this isn't a disbelief, it's realism. That's what it is. So in the beginning of chapter 12, verse 4, I am a laughingstock to my friends by calling on God who answers me. The righteous and upright man is a laughingstock. The one who is at ease holds calamity and contempt and thinks it is prepared for those whose feet are slipping. The tents of robbers are safe, and those who trouble God are secure. God holds them in his hands. So basically, Job, he's doing the right things. He's faithful, and he's being mocked. That literally goes to show right there that the system that these guys are following, they don't exactly work in the way that they're explaining. He's saying, listen, I'm being faithful, and I'm being mocked for it. And that's basically what's going on here. Go down to near the end of that chapter of verses 24 and 25. He deprives the world's leaders of reason. And this is really good, so really pay attention here. And makes them wander in a trackless wasteland. They grope around in darkness without light, and he makes them stagger like a drunkard. So even people with authority don't always know what they are talking about. Verse 24, he deprives the world's leaders of reason and makes them wander in a trackless wasteland. World leaders, right? So Job is referring to the world leaders in the world who also give stupid advice. He's basically saying, just because you hold authority does not mean that you are correct or that you know the way all the time. And that's basically what he's saying here to his friends, right? I mean, Job's point's very simple, right? God's power does not make life neat. It makes it more complex, right? So going down in chapter 13 now this is where things get really personal. Job tells his friends he's not inferior to them, right? And he says that he really wants to speak directly to God, right? He accuses his friends of misrepresenting God, and we'll read into this here in a minute. And he basically claims that his friends are misrepresenting God by doing it dishonestly. And in Job's mind, faith that requires lying isn't faith at all, which obviously I think we could all agree with there. So he speaks honestly to God. Job speaks directly to God. He speaks honestly to God, and he knows that it could cost him everything, right? And you'll see what I'm talking about. The way he speaks to God is kind of scary, but he knows silence would be safer. But he chose to talk to him instead because he knows that being silent would mean it would be disconnecting in a way, right? So, chapter 13. There's a lot in this one that we're covering here. So. Everything you know, I also know this. I'm starting at verse 2. Everything you know, I also know. I am not inferior to you. Yet I prefer to speak to the Almighty and argue my case before God. You use lies like plaster. You are all worthless healers. If only you would shut up and let that be your wisdom. Again, that's where I bring up where Job is claiming that his friends are misrepresenting God and they are not defending God's case at all. Go down to verse 7. Would you testify unjustly on God's behalf or speak deceitfully for him? Would you show partiality to him, or are you the case in his defense? Would it go well if he examined you? Could you deceive him as you would deceive a man? Surely he would rebuke you if you secretly showed partiality. He's basically saying, are you speaking truth, or are you trying to protect this system that we all know is not real, right? Going down to verse 13, be quiet and I will speak. Let whatever comes happen to me, and I will put myself at risk and take my life in take my life in my own hands. Even if he kills me, I will hope in him. I will still defend my ways before him. So he's risking honesty before God instead of, a silent safety, whatever you want to call it. He risks kind of being misunderstood in a way, right? He says, even if he kills me, I will hope in him. He never loses hope, never loses his faith. He's speaking directly to God about how he feels. That is not wrong. People would read this and be like, holy crap, like this is bad. And that's how I was. When I very first ever read Job, I was like, dude, like this guy is saying some crazy things. It does sound crazy, but it's not wrong, right? It's real. That's what it is. It's not wrong, it's real. Verse 18, now then I have prepared my case. I know that I am right. Can anyone indict me? If so, I will be silent and die. He's not faking his faith there at all. Now then I have prepared my case. I know that I am right. Can anyone indict me? If so, I will be silent and die. At this whole time, he is not against being corrected. He's not being opposed to being corrected. He's not saying he's perfect. He's saying, if I've done something wrong, tell me, but I don't think I did. That's literally what he's saying there. Down to verse 23, how many iniquities and sins have I committed? Reveal to me my transgression and sin. Why do you hide your face and consider me your enemy? So again, he's asking to be corrected. He's asking for clarity. And he's asking, why does it feel like you are my enemy? And this is good because this now goes into the last chapter of chapter 14. And this is why I chose to end it here because it's really, 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 really good. So chapter 14 and chapter 13 directly connect, right? So chapter 14, it goes on and it's more of a reflection of what it's really like to be human. They focus heavily on what it's like to be human and not what's right and wrong. And this is real. That's why I really wanted to finish with this, because if there's any kind of note to finish on, it's going to be this one, right? So chapter 14, everything slows down. He stops arguing and starts reflecting on what it is to be human. Life is short, suffering is common, and that's not bitterness. It's just observation, right? So Job wonders why something so fragile feels so intensely scrutinized, right? If life already has limits, why does the pressure feel so heavy for him? So he uses the tree metaphor here. A tree can be cut down and still regrow, but humans don't seem to get that same chance. So from where Job stands, death feels final to him, right? But then something kind of shifts here. So we're gonna get into it. This is really good. So I'm actually not even gonna read the beginning of 14. You're gonna have to skip a little bit. Go to verse 7, I believe it is. There is a hope for a tree. If it is cut down, it will sprout again, and it will shoot. And it shoots, will not die. If its roots grow old in the ground and its stump starts to die in the soil, the scent of water makes it thrive and produce twigs like a sapling. But a person dies and fades away, he breathes his last, where is he? Right? So nature gets a second chance, but we don't, right? Now, then he asks one of the most honest questions in the Bible. If a man dies, shall he live again? Right? Verse 13, if you only would hide me in a Sheol and conceal me until your anger passes, if only you would appoint a time for me and then remember me. When a person dies, will he come back to life? If so, I would wait all the days of my struggle until my relief comes. It's fragile hope, but it's hope. But it's there, And it's like, well, what if? He's asking like the what if questions, right? So pain is definitely real, and death is definitely final, right? And isolation is very heavy. And he still has no answers. This is what it is to be human, right? He's lost everything. Everything. Over a week of waiting. Everything. Over a week, he's lost his children. He's lost his animals. He's lost all of his wealth. His own health is going downhill in a week, right? Over a week. No answers. Still has faith. He imagines, like as I read, God calling him again, and not to judge, but to connect. In the chapter, there's no resolution, there's no answers, but he still imagines hope, right? So chapters 11 through 14, it shows us what happens after easy answers kind of fail, right? The friends get harsher, Job gets clearer, faith becomes riskier, but also more honest, right? Job does not get answers here, but he refuses to disengage, right? And in this book, that choice becomes its own kind of faith. And that's why I thought chapters 11 through 14 were perfect to kind of hammer down on its own little video of itself. This video is probably a little shorter, but again, I think this is really important. I really wanted to go over it. But yeah, I think this is a really good video. I think it's really important. So I'm really excited to see what you guys think about it. Let me know in the comments below. But yeah, it's getting a little late for me. May God bless you guys. I appreciate you tuning in. Of course, please do follow us on our social medias. It is in the link description below. I really heavily prefer Instagram. We really rely on the Instagram. We do have a Facebook page, but Instagram is really, our main social media platform. I got to get better at using both, but Instagram is our main one. So definitely follow us on there. You guys get updates in the little Instagram reels. So may God bless you guys. Have a great rest of your night. Have a great rest of your week as well. God bless.